in a funny way, this trend of people choosing to act on delusion is actually people choosing to act despite their limiting beliefs. Hello, my future and current leaders. My name is Nora, and you are listening to the Head of the Table podcast. I am a former policy advisor, former chief of staff in corporate America, and your advisor on all things leadership. And wow, is 2026 starting off with a bang? I don't know about you, but I just kind of feel like there's a lot going on this year. I want to talk about kind of a little fun topic. I think it's fun, at least. So I hope your year is starting off really well. I just feel really called to talk about kind of a silly term that's been going around social media for, gosh, I feel like at least a year, maybe longer. And that is delusion. I feel like a lot of people have heard it, also referred to as delulu. Oh, sorry, that term just like totally cracks me up. But I wanted to talk a little bit about delusion and how it could help you or maybe not help you. Depends on your situation. I think first and foremost, you know me. I love some good data. I love a good definition. And so we're going to start this episode with what the term delusion means. And delusion typically is a false belief. It is something that someone believes to be true when it is actually not true. And I'm not telling you to go out there and, join a cult. I'm not talking about going and just believing something completely different from reality. We are not talking about, did the moon landing happen? That's a separate conversation that's just not what we talk about on this podcast. We don't talk about conspiracy theories. That would be fun, but this is a leadership podcast. I wanted to talk about delusion, particularly as we look at kind of neuroscience and how the brain works and how delusion, or being quote unquote delulu, could help you get to the next level as a leader or an aspiring leader. Oh my God, inspiring leader. Maybe you're also an inspiring leader. Maybe delusion will help you be inspiring. I wanted to talk about delusion because I feel like there's been this trend on social media where people are like, I'm just going to be completely delusional. And then they apply for a job that they wouldn't and they get it. They go up for promotion and they end up getting it. They ask for a raise, they get it. And really, the term being delulu or being delusional to like get what you want out of life really isn't delusion. But I think the reason it gets construed with delusion is it all has to do with our belief system and limiting beliefs. And I really wanted to talk about this as we're entering a new year because, one, I think the term limiting beliefs kind of floats around, but maybe you don't understand what it is. Maybe you're thinking about it not in a professional way. Like you're not thinking how limiting beliefs could impact you and your professional aspirations. A big example of this for me is I remember I started a new job in 2021 and I was being quote unquote delusional. I was just like applying for all of these jobs that I was like, I have no idea if I'm qualified for. I was incredibly qualified for them. And I think that's kind of the consistent theme that you see with all of these creators that are talking about it. If you follow anyone, that they're taking steps that are actually just kind of the logical next step. But because of limiting beliefs that they have, it feels quote unquote delusional. And that's how we're going to talk about incorporating some delusion into your career. Because at the end of the day, we aren't our limiting beliefs, but our limiting beliefs can hold us back from who we are meant to be and who we want to be. And so as we talk about delusion, a here's my key example. 2021, I was trying to become a program officer. I was a program specialist at the time. The key difference is the program specialist did a lot more admin work, whereas like a program officer did a lot more work, with our grantees at the time. And I really wanted to get that experience. They also got to travel more, which, if you know me, I love to travel. So I really wanted to travel. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to make a difference. I really wanted to help these people. And not any like, they had to have my help. It's more that like I wanted to be a program officer so that I could, look at the resources that we have and how we could continue to support organizations that were doing fantastic work. They didn't necessarily need my help, but in that role, I could help them with funding, which is really important. And I got rejected. It was like, oh, of course, like we'll make you a junior program officer. And then it just kind of didn't work out. And I don't blame anyone for that. It was just the circumstance at the time. So I started looking for a job. And I remember applying for a like consulting position with a top consulting firm. And I was like, oh, I'll never get in, whatever. I had a friend that worked there. So they like put my name in. I was like, oh, thank you so much. And I didn't expect anything to happen. And I got a call from a recruiter. And the like next day, or I got a call from a recruiter. I got the email on a Thursday. We did the interview on a Friday. On Monday, they were like, we want to take you, like, we want to do the next round of interviews. So that week, I did the next round of interviews. And 2 weeks later, I was starting a new job. Like, it happened so quickly. And at the time, I was like, oh my God, I'm delusional applying for this job. I could never be a consultant. And really, I was like, perfectly qualified for it. They were like, had you had any sort of consulting experience, you would have gone in actually as a senior consultant, but you just like haven't managed people before. And I think that's where delusion comes in, where it's in a funny way, this trend of people choosing to act on delusion is actually people choosing to act despite their limiting beliefs. And I want to give you some advice. If you're in a place where you're like, oh my God, nothing's happening for me. I want movement. Be a little delusional. Be a lot delusional. And I always recommend this for those that I'm like coaching or mentoring. What I recommend is to sit down and think about, what do you want? Not like, oh, I want this position. It's, what do you want to do? How do you want to feel? Like when you wake up every day, do you, when you wake up every day, what is it that you want to do? Do you want a job that's like very driven by a certain purpose? Do you want to be your own boss? You want kind of freedom and flexibility with your schedule? I really encourage you to think about that. And once you've thought about it, I would then think of the most underqualified, privileged person you could come up with in your mind. The person that you're like, oh my God, they don't do anything. They're not qualified. Why do they have all these positions? And then I want you to apply to jobs like you're them. I want you to ask for a promotion or a raise like you're them. And I would love to hear in the comments how many of you get that promotion, get that raise, get that opportunity. Because wow, every single time that I have acted in quote unquote delusion, I've totally ended up with the opportunity because I wasn't delusional. I was held back by limiting beliefs. And if you want to clear your limiting beliefs, if you really feel like they're holding you back, I can help you with that. I'm a career coach. I have been doing what's called faster EFT for the last, 5-6 years, and it's completely changed my life. I have 3x'd my income. I have 5x'd my net worth, which if you don't know what net worth is, no big deal. It is kind of the worth of between assets, so like a home, a car, and like cash or investments, like maybe you have a 401k, like all of that put together. And I've met the love of my life. I have an amazing friend group. I've launched this podcast. I have my own business. And I've really just completely changed my life. And a big way that I've done it is I'm a lot more confident. And so if I think back to like when I first started Faster EFT, I I feel like that version of Nora would like straight up have a heart attack trying to record just one episode. I've changed so much. I'm so much more confident, and I really cannot speak highly enough of it. But if you're like, Nora, that sounds lovely, not for me, no big deal. I encourage you to kind of take some of those conscious actions. And if you're like, oh my God, I can't apply for all these jobs, that seems terrifying, I would start with little steps. And here's why. The way that your brain builds out what's called neural pathways, so that's like, think of it like a big library of situations that you've been in that are kind of similar. So your brain knows how to like make the best choice for you. And 95% of these decisions happen in your subconscious brain. So kind of, it's like the librarian that's like way in the back that's like doing all the research. Whereas your conscious brain is the librarian that's like getting like the books that have been returned or, you know, checking you out at the front. Whereas your subconscious brain is like the librarian that if you go up to them and you're like, hi, where's this book? Like they know exactly the book. They're like, okay, follow me up 3 flights of stairs and like down 2 hallways and like into this back corner. And here's the book that you need. And they like know it all from memory. Which side note, I literally thank God for the internet because I remember learning like is it called the Dewey Decimal System? I think that's what it's called. Oh my God. Like this is going to be so embarrassing if I can't remember the name of it. But I remember like learning that system where it was like letters and numbers and like dots and stuff for you to like go find a book. And oh my God, it's so much faster now. Now if I want to go check out something from the DC Public Library, I have their app Libby, which is fantastic. A lot of libraries use it. And so I can just get stuff to my Kindle, talk about privilege. Or I can like just literally order it online and I just like go to the like little reserved section and I just like pick up my book. Like I never look up books in the library anymore. And even if you do, like you're not having to like you used to have to like sort through all of these cards that were stored in like a big file folder or go to a librarian and be like, hi, I want this book by this author. And then they would just like they would pull out the little card for you and then you would go with your little card and like try to figure out where in the library it was. Like it was, oh my God, this is so much easier. Thank God for librarians. They're fantastic. Highly recommend getting to know your local librarian because they are a wealth of knowledge. Even with the internet and AI and everything, librarians are better. But think about your subconscious brain as that like librarian that's probably been working at your library forever, knows where every single book is by memory and like is just doing, you know, some research in the back. Whereas your conscious brain is the person kind of checking you out and saying like, okay, please bring the book back in 10 days or whatever it is. The reason that limiting beliefs can be so impactful in your life, particularly in your career and kind of taking the next step, is that when you have a similar experience, your subconscious brain, that librarian that knows where every book is, goes to the very specific book and says, oh, Nora's asking for a promotion. The last time Nora asked for a promotion, she got fired. Slams book shut. Nope. We're not asking for a promotion. I know where this is going. I know the story. I've read the book already. And where things like Faster EFT or visualizations or like hypnosis can be helpful with the right practitioner, with the right support, is that it changes the story. So instead of the librarian in the back opening up the book and going, the last time Nora asked for a promotion, she got fired. Absolutely not. They go to a different book. They go to a book and they say, oh my gosh, Nora has asked for promotions before And she's received them, or she's received an even better opportunity, or she's received a promotion and a raise. Absolutely, of course we should do this. And that is where stuff like visualizations, EFT, hypnosis, a variety of other resources can be really, really helpful because you get rid of that limiting belief. And the reason that the tools I've talked about are so important is that you can certainly do talk therapy. You can certainly go work with a mental health professional on conscious thoughts. And that can be really helpful because even if you have the subconscious thoughts that are different, like your conscious thoughts might still be holding you back a little bit. The reason it's so impactful is, again, 95% of your brain is subconscious, which means it's kind of like, oh, I'm going to go ask for a promotion, and you're just wandering around the front of the library and you don't really know where you're going and you don't really know what book you're picking up. So you're like, I want to get promoted. And then you pick up a book about like the last time I went hiking, and your brain's like, wait, what? Like, I don't know why this is cracking me up so much, but you're like, oh, I want to ask for a promotion. Your brain is like, the last time you went hiking, you fell down. So no, don't ask for a promotion. Like, what? These are so different. And so that's why it's really important to really cue into your subconscious thoughts. And that's why I do think that this trend of being quote unquote delusional is really helpful, because it is like taking the conscious action. But I think if you pair that with also completely shifting your belief system, it is so helpful. And here's a really good example of something that kind of has happened to me before. Our subconscious brain is very, very active and creating a lot of neural pathways whenever we are young, because we're learning about the world. We're learning about our environment. We're trying to keep ourselves safe. We're trying to figure out how we operate in this world. And so I've had a lot of hilarious limiting beliefs that I have talked with my mom about, and she's been like, what are you talking about? A really good example is when I was 9, my parents started a real estate business. My mom, founded it. My dad would like help, but still had a W-2. And my mom basically ran the business, which is so cool. I have such a cool mom. She's such a great boss woman. Absolutely loved it. And maybe that's what encouraged me to start my own business, because I felt like I could totally manage it because I saw someone else do it. But I remember when they started their business, first of all, being like 9, you have no concept of how finances work. You're just like, we have money or we don't have money. That's all you can really think about. And I overheard some conversations with my parents, and they're like, oh, well, we're like kind of low on cash. And I was like, oh my God, we're going broke. We can't afford anything. And I like totally freaked out. And it's so funny because this is a belief that kind of, when I was 9, was rooted into my brain. And as I got into my 20s and I was doing EFT, like popped up where I was working with my EFT practitioner, and I'm like tapping away, and they're like, it is safe to like, why does it not feel safe to make money? And I'm like, because we've never had money, because my parents struggled when they started their business. Like all this stuff came flowing out, and she was like, whoa. And we tapped and rewired and we're good. But it was so funny because I told my mom about it. I was like, yeah, I remembered the specific memory of you guys talking about being low in cash. And she just like started cackling on the phone because she's like, Nora, we were low on cash because we were renovating a house that we were reselling. Like, I just, my 9-year-old brain thought like that meant we had no money. It was like, no, my parents had recently bought a house as an investment, and they were running like low on cash in an account at the time because they were getting close to like the house being done. And so they were just like, oh, like we just need to like move some money from a different account to make sure that it was covered. And it's like the funniest thing. But there's so many memories in your brain that are like that, where it's not even that you were in an unsafe situation. It's not even that you had like this huge traumatic thing happen. It's just that like your brain wildly misinterpreted something because it was a baby brain and it didn't know what anything meant. And so that's why I really encourage you to look at how you can shift your reality actually kind of back to what it should be. And that's where I'm going to kind of turn this whole thing on its head. we've talked about this trend of people, quote unquote, acting in delusion and being delulu, and then suddenly you're going to get all these opportunities. And really, it's like kind of the opposite. If you aren't clearing your limiting beliefs, you are actually living in delusion. You're living in a reality that actually doesn't exist. It's just something that your brain has created and you now think is reality. For example, I had a lot of limiting beliefs about making more money because I had this hilarious delusion that when I was like 9 and my parents were starting their business, that we were completely broke, and that was like could not be further from the truth. And I mean, it was still challenging. They were starting a business. Obviously, sometimes finances can be tight, but like that wasn't what was happening. And somehow I created this whole reality that like every single time I applied for jobs that paid a lot of money, I had this like limiting belief for a long time that as someone who worked in human rights, worked on women's rights, worked in democracy, that like I couldn't make a lot of money. And the minute that I cleared that, I made so much more money. And not because like I drastically changed careers. I was still working in a similar field. I was still working on human rights, but I just had this hilarious misconception, straight up like delusion, that I could never make a lot of money because when I was younger, we had financial challenges that didn't actually exist. So I would encourage you to maybe do a little work of, what does living in quote unquote delusion, going for your dream opportunity look like? And then I would look at, is that really delusional, or have you been living in delusion all along? Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Head of the Table podcast. I'm so excited that you're here. Please, please, please click that subscribe button and the notification bell so you get notifications whenever new podcast episodes come out. I really am trying to grow this community. I want this to be a place that no matter who you are, your background, your identity, you can come to this place and you can figure out the next steps that you want to take to become, the leader in your field, or how you can become a stronger leader where you are. I am so excited that you're here. And if you want to check out my kind of story, we both have behind the scenes for the Head of the Table podcast on Instagram and TikTok. So you'll get videos, photos of just kind of what's going on, what we're developing. And I've started a little Charlie spotting, which if you're new here, Charlie is my dog. So I just have little clips of like when Charlie appears in the podcast recording, whether he's going up and down the stairs behind me or decides to randomly lay on my lap mid-recording. I also have my personal Instagram and TikTok if you just kind of want to follow along with my journey and more broadly what I'm doing besides the podcast. It's at Nora E. Riddle on Instagram and TikTok. Both of those will appear magically here. And thank you so much for joining this week's episode of The Head of the Table. I hope you live in delusion or maybe just reality again.